what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we are playing the brand new Order in All Things event, which is an alternate game mode in which we get a brand new rule set that we've never seen before. In this event, our deck gets ordered with our highest provision cost cards at the top, going all the way down to our lowest provision cost cards at the bottom, meaning we have perfect consistency. That opens up a lot of options, so let's go take a look at the deck. So today we'll be playing a Skellige Reckless Flurry deck that focuses on playing all of our best cards in round 1, and then replaying all of our best cards using Lippy. And because we're guaranteed to start with all of our best cards in our hand in round 1 in this event, that means we have perfect consistency for basically every single round, which is amazing. So, because we know exactly what our starting hand is going to be, we can basically know exactly what our plan is at the beginning of every match. And that is going to be, first of all, probably Covenant of Steel, your defender, just to play it a little bit safe. So put this in the range row, and then next to Covenant of Steel, you're going to put Melusine, and with Melusine, you're going to damage Covenant of Steel, but it can take the damage because it has armor, and it can get armor back with its ability once it reaches Berserk 6. And then Melusine will increase her base power and give you the option to deal damage to your opponents. But in order to be able to replay that order ability, you need to put a Cultist next to her. So on your next turn, you will then play either the Callous or Vildkaarl, because those are two cards that you actually not only are cultists and therefore can benefit from getting the order ability back on Melusine, but they actually want to take damage, especially this Vildkaarl heal, because if it gets dropped down to 2 power, it will then transform into a 12 power Championess Fallblood, and when we recycle all the cards that we play in round 1, moving them from our graveyard into our deck with Lippy, that means that we're going to get a 12 base power card rather than a 5 base power card. So that's another way in which our round 3 is actually even better than our round 1. Vildkaarl, actually, for what it's worth, is the 11th highest provision cost card in our deck, so it will not be in our starting hand, which means what we'll do is at the very beginning of the match, we actually will use a mulligan on Cerys Fearless in order to put her back into our deck, because she can get summoned out from our deck when we use some self-damage, which, with Melusine, we can make that happen. So it is Vildkaarl and the Callous once you have Melusine out there, and then from there you have a few options. You can either play a little bit of a proactive Sigvald, which once you eventually do get Cerys out there, is a great way to damage yourself and then either damage your opponents even more or boost yourself even more and heal off that damage. And that way, you know, with Cerys's healing, that is basically something that you can just do non-stop. And so it's either that, or you can start to set up a Sukrus plus Arnaghad combo, which means that at least once you're down to 4 cards or fewer in your hand, your opponent is going to get damaged by Arnaghad's power every time they play a card, and that's going to make it really tough for them to do anything for the remainder of the round. And then from there, you can use your leader ability to deal some damage and set up Junod to destroy a damaged enemy unit. And also, you can opt to play even Renfri. She has Doomed, so you'll not be able to recycle her with Lippy, but she will replace your leader ability with what is oftentimes a stronger leader ability, so that means that you obviously want to play your starting leader ability first, and then use Renfri to replace it with whatever fits the situation. You know, it's oftentimes you're looking at some form of damage here, so if your opponent has a high priority card, you're probably looking to get rid of that. And then if you do play Renfri in round 1 with the Blessing, which is the more passive component, you're looking for something that can give you still some long-term value in all likelihood, whereas if Renfri, you end up waiting to play her in round 2 or round 3, which you could end up doing if round 1 is fairly short, then you're looking for something that is more tempo-based. So that's round 1, and then in round 2, we will be guaranteed to draw into Skjall, which is a point slam, so if round 1 goes long and you either did not win, and so your opponent might try to bleed you, you have point slams to defend that bleed, or maybe you won round 1, but you still want to try to bleed in round 2, which is actually really effective with this deck, then you can do that with Skjall. He does get destroyed if he gets down to 5 power, so, you know, try to play him near the end of the round, so he has less time to get damage. You actually want to start with Raging Bear, because if you do that when you don't have any units on the board, that means that you're not going to have to damage any of your units by 2, so it's just an 8-point body. And then Bear Witcher, similar story here, assuming that round 1 went fairly long, then you should be able to trigger this Adrenaline 4 pretty quickly and makes this another 8-point slam. And the other thing is that I do think that Mill is going to be very common in this event for your opponents to use, which means they're going to try to banish cards from your deck, or in some cases, summon cards out from your deck, and if they do that, the top cards in our deck are going to be Skjall, which is a 10-point body. Raging Bear, which is an 8-point body, and we're missing out on the deployability if they summon it out from our deck, which means, I mean, that's fine with us. It's a negative deployability. And to a certain extent, that's also the same case with Bear Witcher. So that makes us a little bit mill-proof, at least in round 1, if they try to summon these cards out from our deck. And then in round 2, we will finish, or at least make sure that at some point you use Lippy, so that you move all the cards, the good cards that you played in round 1, from your graveyard back into your deck, which means you can then, in round 3, draw into those cards and play them again in what is hopefully a short round 3, in which, in particular, you're looking to play a Melusine who has, hopefully with a long round 1, had a lot of time to increase her base power, turning her into what could be as high as about 18 base power, so that is really hard for your opponent to keep pace with, even if you bleed aggressively in round 2 and go a card down. And then also, assuming that you got enough self-damage on the Vildkaarl to transform that into the Champion of Svalbard, that's a 12 power unit, so that's another great point slam in a short round 3. As well as, obviously, anything else, any other gold you might have played in round 1, depending on how long round 3 is. You know, Sukrus plus Arnaghad might make sense, it might not. Might just be looking for point slams, might still have Junod. If you can damage your opponent with Melusine, then that's a good way to set that up. Those are the types of things you're looking for in round 3. And again, because we have perfect consistency in this event, you know for a fact that that is going to be your starting hand and what you're going to draw into in round 2. The one exception is if you don't do enough self-damage to get Cerys out in round 1, then you might happen to draw into her in round 2, in which case just mulligan her back into your deck. But that is the plan, and it should be quite consistent because, well, and quite powerful. We know what we're going to get. We're going to play all of our best cards in round 1, and since we can replay all of our best cards in round 3, that is really the big difference maker that's going to make it hard for our opponents to catch up to us. So, let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against monsters here, and we'll go first. Alright, so because our deck is ordered from highest provision to lowest provision, it means that we will always draw into this hand here, so we know we're always going to get this, and it also means we have all of our best cards. There is still one we'd like to mulligan, though. That is Cerys, because when we do that, she can get summoned out from our deck when we do some self-damage, and we will do that with cards like Melusine. So we get rid of her, and we will always get Vildkaarl in return. That is the card we want to play in round 1, so that's fine. And that means we can also basically do the same opening every match, and so that is generally going to mean you're going to want to start with Covenant of Steel, your defender, just to play it a little bit safe. I like to play him in the range row, because when Cerys does get summoned out from our deck, she will get summoned to the range row, so just one more card we can protect with this defender. Ragnarug will deal some damage through that defender, which is clever, but we do have some cards that actually like taking damage, so I'm not too concerned about that, not to mention Covenant of Steel will gain armor, so I think what we'll do here is we'll go Melusine next. That is usually what we do anyway, but if we put her to this side of Covenant of Steel will actually gain armor, and then Melusine will damage Covenant of Steel, so we should still stay on a 6 here, like so. Melusine's base power will increase, and then next turn we can start using this order ability. We'll still take some damage from Cataclysm, though, so that is still going to be a little bit annoying, but we do have some cards that like taking damage, as I said, those including things like Vildkaarl, and it is also a cultist, so we'd like to play either you or the Callous on the other side of Melusine, so we can further increase Melusine's base power, and also get closer to transforming you into the much stronger 12 power Champion of Svalbard once you get down to 2 points. Put the rain over here. So now, we actually would like if you took some of that Cataclysm damage, because then it's just going to transform you more quickly. Okay, Weavis will boost one of their cards. And there is the conversion. Quicker than usual, but hey, we'll take it. So, 12 power Champion of Svalbard is out. Now we would like to get the Callous out here, because we do want to get him down to 5 power as well, so we can repeat his deployability, or rather his order ability. So we'll put you here, so we aren't taking as much damage on our defender anymore. And we can continue to use Melusine's ability as well, because we have a cultist next to her. Notably, the Champion of Svalbard is not a cultist, so once it transforms, you want to make sure you have the Callous there as well. So, other than that, I mean, we could... Tactical advantage. You will get boosted, or base power increased up to a 5, so even Cataclysm will not take you out, so this is still relatively safe. And we could have used the Callous. I'm going to wait to do this, though, until we get Cerys out from our deck, which should be fairly soon. They can technically destroy our defender here. So could have used tactical advantage to heal him up a bit, boost him up a bit, get him out of removal range. Wouldn't have been a bad option. How close are we to getting Cerys? Still going to take a few turns before we can make that happen. So let us continue to, let's see, probably throw Melusine Rain on this row. So what we can do here is we could either get Sigvald out, which is a card that we also like taking damage. So that is a card that, again, does synergize best with Cerys in particular, so we like to wait until we get her out. So what if we instead opt for getting Sukrus down here? We're going to protect the Championess Fallblood, so we'll no longer take damage while it's next to Sukrus, and that means we can use the Callous to hit Championess Fallblood. It won't actually damage it, but it's going to deal a lot of damage to one of their units, and, you know, who we'd like to hit here. I mean, we have enough to destroy Weavis, but Brewis still has an ability that she has yet to use, so that's maybe a little bit higher priority. And I'm going to, just in case, technically speaking, leaving Melusine damaged is kind of nice once Cerys does come out, but she's getting low enough that I was a little bit concerned, and we saw they at least use some damage against our defender. Scratch a lot. Okay, well, we can, if they get rid of the immunity by using his order ability, we can destroy him. Or if they replay him, you know, we can just drop an Arnaghad here, and that will also destroy him if they try to replay him. So it is going to technically, well, they don't have any Thrive on the board, so that's actually kind of weird. So we will put him next to Sukrus, of course, as is oftentimes the plan with the Sukrus plus Arnaghad combo. That's another reason why we'd like to have the defender here still, but alas, not anymore. It means if we want to use the Callous on this turn, we can, but we'd like to do it on Arnaghad instead, because he's the one who can't take damage now, and we can use that to get rid of Brewis, so we will. And Melusine, I mean, yes, if they replay Scratch a Lot, they're going to negate this damage, but we'll do it just to put some pressure on them. And I think that might get Cerys out here pretty darn soon. Not just yet, probably next turn. Okay, they'll pass. That actually means that Cerys, I think, will, get summoned out from our deck when Melusine does her auto damage, but it's actually fine, because what we're going to do is in a later round, namely round 2, we're going to use Lippy to quote-unquote deck flip and switch our graveyard with our deck, and so if Cerys gets onto the board here, she's going to go into our graveyard at the end of the round, so that means she will still go back into our deck in round 3. So we'll pass here, and it means Melusine will, at the end of the round, be up to 18 base power. So we have a high base power card there is Cerys, as we said, and we're going to have the 12 base power Small Blood in our deck as well, or rather, in our graveyard, switching into our deck once we use Lippy. So then for round 2, we're guaranteed to draw into Skjall, Raging Bear, and Bear Witcher, which are some high-tempo cards, which are nice, because if you want to bleed a little bit in round 2 before you do your deck flip with Lippy, you can. If you do that, you want to play Raging Bear first, because this is would normally damage one of your own units by 2, but if you play first, there's nothing to damage, so it's just an 8-point slam. So we'll probably do a little bit of this stuff, or this, and then Lippy, and maybe even Renfri. We'll see. See where this takes us. Because although we did play one more card than our opponent, we're, at this point, seeing if we can trade one of our cheaper cards. In this case, this is just a 5 provision cost card. See if we can exchange this for one of their stronger ones. And because we know we will replay, or at least have the chance of replaying all of our big cards in round 3 with Lippy, that is another reason why we can play super aggressively in round 1 and, to a lesser extent, round 2, and just rely on drawing into things like 18-point Melusine, 12-point Championess Fallblood, maybe Arnaghad plus Sukrus in round 3. So, and maybe that's reason to hold on to Skjall in case we're, again, looking at a short round, but at this point, Sigvald doesn't have that much in the way of synergies. He would have been something we'd have liked to have played with Melusine and the Callous in round 1, so, you know, if we're looking to just trade cards here, that's not a terrible option. They play their scenario, which is obviously a huge commitment. So, I mean, also, it's not enough for them to catch us, so we could just pass here, and it'd be kind of a nifty play. Well, we want to use Lippy either way. But we could also just destroy this Cursed Damsel, which we might proceed to do here. So what if we do play Sigvald? As I said, he's not that valuable to us anymore. Okay, and Drago Larva is a Thrive card. They will gain value over time. Does that really count if you... I guess I haven't played against or with Dark Manor's Secret enough with the initial damsel getting destroyed immediately to see if just playing a Thrive unit when there are no Thrive units on the board triggers this scenario, but apparently it does. Which is kind of clever. But they still have not technically caught us. It is going to be hard to pull off Junod here because they are going to have units that are basically going to immediately get boosted. But as I said, we do want to make sure we use Lippy in this round. So that is potentially something we do here. And they may still need more cards to catch us. They do have some tempo with their leader ability, of course. But, yeah. I think we'll still go about using Lippy here. Renfri obviously is also an option. So there's the deck flip. Now that means our deck is consisting of only the big cards that we played in round 1, which is really nice. That does not proc Thrive, so it is going to... Ooh, yeah. Yeah, give them solid tempo here. Very solid tempo, somewhat surprisingly. But, so what we could consider doing is either we can pass here and say, okay, yes, they're going to be up a card. We kind of accepted that when we started to bleed in this round and force them into committing their scenario. But, so we could do that. Or we can continue to try to push further here and see if we can continue to, trade one of our weaker cards for one of their stronger cards. Like Bear Witcher here is worth 8 points. We could hit their non-Thrive unit and see if we can force them into playing something else, because Thrive, usually in a short round, is quite weak. And so, getting rid of this scenario, getting rid of Scratchlot, which they might find a way to get back. But I think that's not a terrible idea here. And of course, they do need to continue to play, because we won round 1. So we are forcing them to get bled further. Okay, and Karen Thier. Probably the plan there was, okay, I was going to say, let's get a second copy of Scratchalot, but Karen Thier plus Kashe is a classic. So, yeah, I mean, that is incredibly powerful. So to get them to commit that in round 2 is definitely a big win for us. They still have their original Kashe in their hand, so if we can get that out as well, that'd be really awesome. For what it's worth, we can destroy this Kashe with Junod if we really wanted to. That is technically something we could consider doing. It's not worth a ton of points right now, but this has serious growing potential. So maybe we do use this trade here. As we were just saying, Junod is going to be really hard to make him work against Thrive. So I think we might just take this opportunity here. And because we destroyed a card, it also gets out our Seagulls, which were in our deck. And when we did our deck flip, they went into our graveyard. And so that meant that when we destroyed a card, they got summoned out, giving us a couple of free extra points. And that is enough for us to retake the lead here. So they are, once again, kind of forced to keep on playing when they really don't want to be doing that right now. Okay, Olgierd is a point slam to trigger Thrive. And so tempo-wise, that was a smart move. They're trying to see if they can save that original Kashe, and we might not be able to force it out here, because, well, I mean, we can Skjall. We could play every single card in round 2. We could Renfri and Skjall, and collectively, those things are probably enough to force them to keep on playing here. We could consider that. We could consider that. I think we will. We're going to go Renfri here, just in case it's something that warrants a little more time. Damage all enemy units by 1. I mean, they have a lot of units. Destroy an enemy unit with 8 or less power. Play a bronze unit from your hands. We don't have any bronze units. Definitely don't want this. I think it's probably Curse of... Well, Curse of Envy if we're looking at this round. Although they have a lot of armor. So maybe it's actually Curse of Pride. They don't have a great target for that, but... in round 3, that would probably still be the best option for us. I think this. There was the one that gives us points when we pass, which would have been useful for this round, but I went for the one that splits damage, thinking that this is something we're going to save for round 3 specifically. So they have to keep on playing here, because if they pass now, then we can win the match with Skjall. But we are probably not going to play him. Mantrap is actually a solid finisher. And they have to use Onir to get it, but of course they will be able to get the echoed copy of Oniro in round 3. So we know one card in their hands is their original Kashe. And we know they're going to draw into and Oniro. We don't know what their second card is. And they still have leader ability, which is going to be a good way to trigger Thrives, but we tried to bleed out much of their Thrive stuffs and make this round shorter, because Kache plus that leader ability is pretty incredible. So, okay. I think this is where we pass, because Skjall is not enough for us to catch them, so it wouldn't even force them to play any further. Okay, so we draw into some of our big cards here, but not all of them, or at least not all the ones we'd like to see together. Melusine at 18 base power, awesome. Love that. Probably would like to see either Champion of Svalbard at 12 base power, or see Arnaghad, which could also mess with them, and we have Sukrus in hand, so I think we get rid of the Callous here. Definitely don't want Cerys. Can we get Champion of Svalbard? So yeah, we're looking at point slams here, basically. And Sukrus, I mean, I'm not sure how much damage they're realistically going to have, but he could make it so Skjall is a little bit safer. So they're going to start with Kache, and we're going to immediately destroy it with Curse of Pride. They should use leader ability here, which is big enough that we can't hit you. We can't destroy you, but we will get rid of the Kache, because if we don't, this is going to continue to spawn in more Intriga Larvae, which means even in a short round, they'll be able to get a lot of Thrive on the board, and we do not want that. So we get rid of you, and we're going to split 6 points of damage, which we're hoping is going to be enough to get rid of this Thrive engine as well. So we're just going to have a Woodland Spirit hanging out on the board, and it doesn't really have anything to do after that, because it doesn't have any abilities. So we get rid of you. Okay, good. And we destroyed their Thrive engine, so that's nice. And now one case you could have made for keeping the Callous was it would have meant we'd have the ability to replay Melusine's Order ability. I'm not that concerned about that. In a short round, it's the base power that matters here. So we'll still get one round of that Order ability, but she is, of course, our biggest card, so we might wait a little bit to play her. What if we go Champion of Svalbard first? Yes, this is also big. We'll see if they have any removal cards remaining. First Damsel, which is Thrive, but we took away some of their best Thrive synergies here. That was the intention. And so now, I mean, we could put Melusine to this side of the Champion of Svalbard, and then put Sukrus here, and then Champion of Svalbard won't take damage from Melusine, which means technically Melusine is giving us a little more points every turn. There's a chance they have something like Red Haze, which would really hurt us, but I mean, it's pretty unlikely. They just play that Cursed Damsel directly from hand, because that actually can tell us a lot. They did. So that means they have 4 provision cost cards in hand, so Red Haze is a 4 provision cost card, and it's possible if they have it in their deck, that they might have that here, but we're going to take our chances. I think it's pretty darn unlikely. It's Ice Giant, which is a point slam. So now we go Sukrus here, because that means that we will not take 1 turn of damage from Melusine on this Champion of Svalbard. Technically, could destroy one of our units to heal itself, but I mean, that's going to be a net negative play pretty much anytime. So we'll use Melusine here to hit this melee row, just because it has more units in it. Yes, it means we're hitting a Thrive engine, which for the most part I'm not thrilled about that, because it does make it easier for them to trigger the Thrive, but I think it's still going to be okay. And that is just enough rain that it will basically last for the pretty much remainder of the game, and that's why I'm not too concerned about only being able to use Melusine's Order ability once. Then we use Skjall, and this is just another point slam here. So again, we could heal with Champion of Svalbard, but that's not really a big concern, because that would be a negative point play. We'd have to eat something that is much bigger than the 1 point of damage that we're healing. So we'll pass here. So we bled pretty aggressively in round 2, but those big point slams in round 3 hopefully made it worth it. We're about to find out. And they can't catch us. They'll forfeit, and we'll take the win. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and we'll go first. And of course, we always draw into our best cards, which means our starting hand will always be the same. However, we still want to get rid of Cerys, because we can summon her out from our deck, so we don't need her in hand, and we'll always replace her with Vildkaarl. And we do want to play that from hand, so that works well. So now our hand is great, and first, we like to play our defender just to keep things safe, and especially against Nilfgaard, who likely has a lot of control. We'll opt to go that route. Then it'll be Melusine next to the defender to increase Melusine's base power, and defender with that armor is not actually going to take any damage from that. But we will see if they have anything to disrupt this guy, because this is Nilfgaard, so that is certainly possible. And yeah, it's Yenvo. That's not terribly surprising. Now the question is, how do we feel about playing Melusine? Because there's no defender, so she's much more vulnerable. Could boost her up with tactical advantage if we're concerned about damage. But, I mean, there might still be a heat wave or something like that, and we do very much want to build around Melusine, so that would be an issue if she were to go down. But I think we might need to take our chances there. So let's go Melusine. Let's use tactical advantage just to play it super safe here. Now, do they have Tull removal, which at above 9 points they could now use? Okay, well, it's mill. And it's unfortunate on Melusine, but we are kind of mill-proof. Because we have Lippy, and because the cards they're going to get out with mill are point slams, like Skjall, like next one would be Bear Witcher, and then Raging Bear. So they're not going to have much luck with this, if that is their plan. So problem is now self-damage is substantially more difficult for us. So we can use the Callous, but we can't really get the Callous damaged. So I think we'll use the Callous to hit Vildkaarl. Is maybe what comes up next here. And I mean, he might, no, I think it's probably gonna be what? Tibor next for more mill? Or maybe Cantarella? Or Masa? Okay, I mean, that's technically also mill. Okay, leader ability into Sigvald, which is not a huge deal. Obviously, we'll try to avoid hitting him. But now I think we go Vildkaarl. I don't remember if we're rounding up or down for this damage, because we would like to trigger the Berserk 2 here. And we will. Okay, great. So then it's just a little bit of baby damage here, because we would normally be using this on Melusine, but, well, take your pick. I guess we'll go Mata. You'll transform into a 12-power Championess Fallblood, which is good, because we want to be able to recycle some high base power cards using Lippy, and, well, that is the card that they just stole from us. So, at this point, now, I mean, we can, not quite yet, but we can consider Sukrus plus Chad relatively soon. We would have liked to have had the option, at least, of using Junod to hit this Mata, although technically our leader ability can go through armor, so might still be enough to destroy Covenants of Steel there, but we'd rather not hit Sigvald. Then again, 1 damage on Sigvald is not a huge deal. So our Sigvald without Melusine and without the repeated abilities from the Callous is not super effective. So in this case, I mean, we honestly might just play Sigvald for the case of getting him out, because he's a 7-point body and we've lost much of his setup. But if this is mill, and it certainly looks like it, then they just don't have a lot of points in round 1. This is going to be for Kingslayer. Does this always banish the top card? Yeah, it is always the top card. Okay. So that is a little unfortunate, because that was a card that we wanted them to force out, because it was a decent point slam for us. But, okay. So the other reason why we don't care about mill is because we're going to recycle our graveyard with Lippy, and we're going to replay everything that we played in round 1. So they're going to try to banish every card in our deck, and they're just going to fail miserably at it. So I know mill is going to be really popular in this event, because they have a very high chance of, basically guaranteed, to get rid of a bunch of your good cards, but it's just not really going to be nearly as effective as they are hoping it will be in this case. So let's now break out the Sukrus and then next turn Chad combo, because that means that if we play both of these guys in round 1, we can get them back in round 3. Okay, Golden Necker. It's a little surprising. Cantarella. At this point, I think the card they're going to steal is going to be Raging Bear, which is going to damage themselves. So it's not that good. Decoy, I'm curious what they replay here. A Sire. They have something in their graveyard, but Arcane Tome, I'm not really sure we have much in the way of special cards in our deck. I don't think so. Thought occurred to me. But, oh. Oh. Well, that's nifty. They're milling themselves now, for what it's worth as well. But again, we actually do not care at all if they mill our deck, which they're gonna have that realization at some point here. But more importantly for them, that was decent points to them. As I said, we do not have any special cards in our deck here, so it's not really gonna change much. We do still have Cerys, which we would have summoned out with all of our self-damage from Melusine, and Melusine setting up self-damage on the Callous and Sigvald and what have you, but that's just not really going to happen anymore, and it also means that Cerys is not that valuable to us anymore, so getting her banished is actually not that big of a deal. So at this point, we go Arnaghad, and so unless they have Lock or Heat Wave, this is going to be a problem for them. We are up by 1 point, which means unless, do they have anything to continue to score points, they technically may still be able to trigger this Assimilate. Might want to use a leader ability. Nah. We'll force them to play further here if they want to win round 1. And get Sword. Good enough for a Cantarella. Okay, I mean, if you insist. Again, it's technically, yes, a way for more mill, but it's not really going to help you here. So, I mean, we technically could squeeze in a Crow Clan Preacher, and it would be enough, because we are already on even points. But, the one downside of doing this in this round is that it does mean we'll recycle the Preacher with Lippy, and so that is one substantially weaker card that we'd rather not recycle compared to all these other really good cards that we would like to be replaying in round 3. So, I mean, we have enough cards in our graveyard. I actually don't like that the Arcane Tome is there, but I think that means that there's a low enough probability of us drawing into this that I'm not too concerned about it. They can still get a few points out of... Oh, no, this is just Order. Or rather, just Seal. I'm not sure. They must have something in mind with this, but I'm not sure they can play anything unit-wise with Arnaghad on the board right now. Yeah, Tibor. Oh, no, not the Seagull. Not only is it 1 power card, but, so normally we are Tibor-proof. Normally Tibor would get out Skjall if they played him earlier, or the Raging Bear, or the Bear Witcher, which means Tibor plays for very few points. They got extremely lucky that they waited on him and happened to get out the Seagull. So we still hit Tibor a lot with Arnaghad here. So it's still not an amazing play, but the reason why I like getting Seagull, keeping Seagull in our deck is because when we do the deck flip with Lippy in round 2, it means the Seagulls, we have another one in our deck. Both of them will be in our graveyard in round 3, and then when we get a kill with something, we get 2 free points from the Seagulls in what is usually a short round 3. So it's just a nice little way of getting additional points in round 3. So we can destroy Tibor, and probably will, with Junod, because this is a good opportunity to sneak him in. Lippy is the only card we can't play in round 1. So we can go pretty far if we need to. And that is another way in which we are pretty much mill-proof, because they want to push as far as possible in round 1 to guarantee they get the round 1 win, but that is going to be very tough to do. And they cannot make it happen, they realize, and so they forfeit. Like I said, we are basically mill-proof. Alright, so going up against monsters here, and we'll go first. Okay, so we will always draw into our best cards in this event, but we still want to get rid of Cerys because she can get summoned from our deck, so we don't need her in hand, and when we get rid of her, we will always get Vildkaarl, and that's a card we want to play in round 1, so that works out well. Now our hand is fine. And first turn, generally speaking, we would always like to play our defender, just to keep it safe. I mean, if you're feeling really bold, you could opt to go straight into the next play here, but I'm always going to go defender, turn 1, range row, and that means range row specifically, because that can help protect Cerys when she does get summoned out. Okay, this is not a Kelly deck. I really thought that was going to go melee row, and this was going to be Kelly. Maybe not. But now it's Melusine. Put Melusine next to the defender, and that means Melusine's base power will increase, and the defender has armor, so won't actually take damage on this turn. Okay, Manticore, which as things currently stand would destroy our defender, which is actually okay. We would of course rather not lose one of our cards right now, but so that means, it does make things a little bit trickier here, because it was going to be either the Callous or Vildkaarl on our next turn, but either one of those would become our lowest unit once they take damage from Melusine, unless we were to use the tactical advantage on them to boost them up, but then We want these cards to get damaged, so that's definitely counterproductive. Think what we will do here is I'm going to go the Callous first. I think it's a little more disposable if this is the card that gets destroyed. I think so. We'll use Melusine to apply the Rain, which will damage them, and because the Callous is a cultist, as is the Vildkaarl, it means that we will be able to reuse her order building next turn. I think they might be spamming, what is it, Weavis, the one that allows them to trigger Deathwish abilities multiple times. No, Arnaghad's Queen. Okay, yeah, they're creating as many copies of this as possible. Yep, that's going to be pretty devastating in round 1, but of course we're planning to replay all the cards in our graveyard using Lippy once we flip our graveyard with our deck in round 2, so it is going to make matters tricky in round 1, but if we can still find a way to get the job done in round 1, then we should still be able to bounce back, but means it's going to continue to be the case that whatever is our lowest card is going to be vulnerable here, so, I mean, that's, again, potentially Vildkaarl, or do this, it would take 2 leader ability charges to get rid of a Manticore on this turn. This might be a brief window of safety. You are a cultist, which means, once again, we can do this and still get the order ability back. Once Melusine damages you, I mean, you're still going to be the lowest card anyway. So, I do want this to transform before it gets destroyed, and I think we might have a turn to make that happen. They're probably going to consume it. Well, they still can destroy you on this turn if they really want to. It's going to require a leader ability, or potentially 2. Aaron additional Weavises? No. Oh! Wow! Didn't see that one coming. That was clever. That was very clever. Okay. So, yeah, we were hoping to damage this Vildkaarl to transform it into a Champion's Fallblood. I mean, technically, the Rain might end up doing that, so we want to be a little bit careful about applying the Rain there. But at this point, we could also... no, we can't go through the Defender, so we can't use Junod to get rid of you. At this point, we might be looking to set up Sukrus plus Arnaghad, which would still be a little tricky to finish the job in this round, but it may be worth going that route at this point. Now, neither of these guys are cultists. They have, unfortunately, shut down our cultists here. So, I mean, we can go for the Rain in this row, but we are not going to get that order ability back. And unfortunately, the Rain did hit you. We do not want you to take 1 more damage. Otherwise, you do become a concern. We can still play Sigvald, which would be a cultist we could put next to Melusine, but I'm trying to prioritize the Arnaghad Sukrus combo here. That gets out the Manticore that we were expecting them to have. Now, they could leader ability here and destroy Sukrus if they wanted to. That is potentially something they could consider. And they will. Okay. So I think we have to bail. I think we probably have to bail in this round. So it means we will still have, what? Sukrus, the Callous, Melusine on 14 or 15 by the end of this round, 15 base power, and Covenant to Steel in our graveyard that we can get back with Lippy, which is not ideal, but otherwise, I mean, we just can't catch them on this this turn, and it needs to be on this turn, otherwise we're in trouble tempo-wise. I mean, leader ability, maybe with that. Might have been worth doing the math there to see if tactical advantage, all leader ability charges, and maybe a Renfri even might have been sufficient. So although we lost round 1 here, for round 2 we draw into some high tempo cards like Skjall, Witcher, a Bear Witcher, and Raging Bear, which if we play first is an 8-point slam. So that does work fairly well for us. I think we will, for that reason, keep the cards we have. Sigvald does not have as much setup as he would have otherwise had if we played him in round 1. So he's more of a throwaway. And Arnaghad, we would very much like to combine him with Sukrus, which we could still potentially get if we hold on to you for round 3 and get Sukrus through Lippy. So we will stick with this, but this is going to be a bit tricky. Okay, and they're at least... Ooh, I was going to say at least using a throwaway, but Self-Eater is pretty strong. I think what we do, or long-term, has a lot of potential to grow. I think it's going to be Raging Bear first, which does technically out-tempo them. The question is leader ability or not. This is enough tempo-wise already, but long-term they can outpace us if the Self-Eater duplicates and they do choose to push. So it does raise some questions. If they use the order ability, and then they're going to have another unit on the board, though. It's still going to be harder. Yeah, I think we do it. I mean, we can technically save a charge of it, so we're not all in on it. And, of course, we can replace our leader ability with Renfri, so we don't have to be that protective of it. Okay, it's another Self-Eater, which, for what it's worth, if we hit them with one round of our leader ability and drop you to 2 power, I'm not sure you can use that order ability, and you might, after you play a relic, to be able to do that, but we could. Reckless Flurry, and then Junod to destroy you. We do need to play Lippy in this round, so that is something worth considering. Bear Witcher, once it gets to Adrenaline 4, could also combine with leader ability remove you, but we're not yet there. So I think we're looking at, let's Reckless Flurry. So now we can play Renfri whenever we'd like, but I think we go with Lippy here, just to make sure we have time to squeeze him in this round. So we did not play nearly as many cards as we would have liked to have played in round 1. Also, they stole one of the cards that we wanted to have recycled into our deck, that being the Vildkaarl transformed into, if it had taken more damage, Champion of Svalbard, which would have been a 12-point unit for us to point slam. But it's mostly this 15-point Melusine, and we did have a Sukrus in there, which we'd like to draw into to combine with Arnaghad if we can save him. Okay, which is Sabbath. We'll get back the biggest cards. I don't even remember what they were. I mean, our biggest cards are kind of big as well, for what it's worth, because they're ones that we didn't play in round 1, because remember, we switched our graveyard with our deck, but we do have some high base power bronze cards, thankfully. We can also apply some rain here. Let's see, they can steal Lippy with Maruna. That's not really a concern. Arrakis Queen will give them another one of the Imperial Manticores. What are we thinking here? I think it might want to Renfri and just see what our options are. Play a bronze card from hand. We do technically have a bronze. Damage all units by 1, damage enemy unit by 6. Excess damage to adjacent units. Can't really do that when they have the defender out there. I think we might need to have it be Curse of Envy. Randomly split damage. Set lowest powered allied unit 10. That's not going to be that useful. I think it's going to have to be this, because if we split damage, we risk destroying one of their Deathwish cards. We can't hit around this Cave Troll, so the damage to adjacent units would not be all that meaningful. Bloody Mistress will increase the power here. And they are on Sabbath. So that does get Gurnakora out. I think we do want to use the rain now, because that might get rid of one of the Gurnakora fruits, and we'd like to do that. We might even want to go leader ability here. Playing the lowest provision card from our deck. Well, that's going to be, I think, the Callous at 8, which... ability is not super helpful. Although, actually, okay, here's what we do. We do it, get the Callous, use the Callous to hit you, hit the Cave Troll, and now Cave Troll, if it takes 1 damage, we can destroy it with Junod, which, oh, we can make sure happens. We do this. So tempo-wise, we had passed them and passed them by a fair bit, but they have some potential here with that Arrakis Queen in particular. Now they're starting to get these Self-Eaters to work as well. So we can Junod to destroy the Cave Troll. I mean, at this point, it's 4 power, so it's not a huge deal. I mean, Sigvald with Callous would have been nice, but we didn't have really the time to get him down there. Skjall is our best point slam. But they don't think they can catch us. They'll forfeit, and we'll take the win. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And we'll go first. Alright, so in this event, we always draw into our highest provision cost cards, which means this is always the starting hand that you will see. And there actually is a card that we want to mulligan, despite it being, theoretically, our best possible cards. That is Cerys, because Cerys can get summoned out from our deck, so let's get rid of her, and she will always get swapped in for Vildkaarl, which is a card that we want to have in round 1, so that's great. So we leave it at this. And it also means that we always have at least a very good sense of what our plan is for round 1, and that is probably, especially against Nilfgaard in particular, who has likely a lot of control, Defender first. And range row is preferable because we will hopefully still summon Cerys out from our deck in this round, and she will always get summoned to your range row, so that helps protect her. Then it's going to be Melusine after that, but yes, I imagine they're probably Mill. I imagine Mill is going to be very, very common in this event. So, because they know they're going to get rid of one of our best cards and swap it out for one of our weaker cards. That being said, they did just summon a 10 power unit onto the board, so technically that was a negative point Mill. We would have liked our Defender because now we're going to play Melusine, and we definitely don't want to play Melusine next to Skjall, but we will proceed here. Might even consider using tactical advantage on Skjall. Maybe not just yet, but it's worth considering. So yeah, I'm expecting Mill. It's Mill. Fortunately for us, we are a little bit Mill-proof here with Lippy and with the high base power cards from our starting deck, so they are not so happy about a 5-point Tibor and a sort of negative point Vilgefortz. So now that we have Melusine down, we would have had a Defender help protect her, but now we want to put a Cultist next to her, at least on one side, so that we can make sure we can use her Order ability repeatedly, and there are some cards we want to self-damage, either Vildkaarl or the Callous. So let's go Vildkaarl here, and let's use Melusine's Order, and I think we'll do it here, because we might want a Junod on a humongous Tibor. I do like the sound of that. So once this gets damaged down to a 2, it'll transform into a much stronger Champion as Fallblood. Okay, Cantarella is more Mill. Not so surprising either. This one is going to force them to damage themselves. It's still an okay play for them. So it is obviously still an 8-point unit, but 8-point unit that deals 2 damage, so on net 6 points. The reason why I'm not concerned at all about Mill is because we have all of our most important cards in our hand here in round 1, and with Lippy, we can replay all those cards in round 3. So, means that, well, the primary objective of Mill is not going to work, and they realize, so they'll forfeit. So there you have it. It is, in fact, a Mill counter. So there's a look at a Skellige deck for the brand new Order in All Things event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Although, heads up, I will be out of town for the rest of this week, so I may not be able to respond to your comments just yet. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.